Welcome to Law Excellence Hindu News Analysis. Today we are going to cover these topics that are appeared in the today's edition of Hindu newspaper. Now coming to the first article of the day. Now this article is saying that cash transfer schemes for women as a new poll plank. Now what is the context of the news? You know that recently elections are conducted in the states of Maharashtra and Jharkhand assembly elections. Now it has been seen that the center of the campaigning of elections is targeting of women by providing them the cash transfer schemes. Especially if you see there is a scheme called Mukhyamantri Maji Ladki Bahan Yojana. This was there in Maharashtra, in which they are providing 1500 rupees a month, a direct benefit transfer of women. Now, similar scheme was there in Jharkhand also, where 1000 rupees is providing for women. Now, why this woman as a new target is there? Now, the author is saying that in this article, there is more women into the political space. That means it is been said that the turnout of women voters are increasing. For example, it has been said that now it is around 66% of the women are coming to the voting. That means it's a huge number. So political parties who are campaigning are having a fear of missing out if they are not able to announce any scheme specifically to the women. Now this is what the context of the news. Now the people who are arguing for this cash transfer schemes is that they're saying that this will help in providing economic independence for women, right? By directly benefiting to the or creating to the accounts of the women. Now it leads to bypassing of the middleman. Now in the previously it has been said that the money that is transferring to the beneficiaries will have intermediaries like officers at the ground level or some village level officers. Now there is a lot of corruption happening in that. Now this reduces that leakage and things like that. Now it is also been said that when the money is given to the woman, now it helps in nutrition support. Okay. Now, this is also one of the benefit that author is saying. Now, we will see from the main perspective because populism, political populism as a concept of is very important from the examination perspective, especially in GS paper 2. And also your direct benefit transfers as a concept is also relevant from the examination, especially on the GS paper 3. Now, if you see this GS paper 3 question, it was asked that in what way could replacement of price subsidy, direct benefit transfers, change the scenario of subsidies in India? So hence this context is relevant. Now it is being said that around 16 states in India have different schemes with different technologies of similarly having DBT directly crediting money to the women's account. Now how far this is sustainable? Now this is what the article is saying. Now we will see from the main perspective what are the arguments for and arguments against these cash transfer schemes. Just now we mentioned that cash transfer leads to economic independence, especially for the women. Now I said that it is about nutritional support. Now it has been said that women are the one who are last to eat in a house. If there is poverty in the house, the less amount of food that is available will be given to everyone, and the least what is left is taken by the woman. Now in this way, there is some type of family exclusion. Hence, this will help in nutritional support. Now address the inequality of immediate access. Now we also know that there is a lot of economic inequality in India. Now, the allied people or prosperous people will address their needs privately by providing money to their services. They can afford it. But people who cannot afford, what is that? See, it is the government who have responsibility of providing welfare services. Now, in that context, this is very important. Now, it will bypass the middleman. Just now, it increases efficiency, prevents leakages. Okay, it prevents leakages. It prevents duplication or ghost beneficiaries of schemes, things like that. Okay, now it has been said that even DBT through Jandan Yojana also saved 2 lakh crores of government exchequer money. Now in a study conducted by the World Bank, now things like that are happening. No, it is benefiting the government also in a way by preventing corruption. Now it addresses the gaps in trickle down effect. Now it has been said that through development and infrastructure or investment in the infrastructure, it has been said that it takes time to reach the development fruits to the ground level. Now poor people cannot wait for such time. Now to address this, now this direct benefit transfer is seen as a compensation. Now these are the arguments for cash transfers. There are arguments against, that means who are criticizing. Now it is being said that this cash transfer is like a short-term measure. That means it is indicating the failure of the governments to provide the long-term services such as providing healthcare, education, infrastructure, employment. Hence, they are taking the short-term measure to win the elections. Now, some people are saying that this is also in a kind of bribing the voters because these schemes are announced just before the elections. Now, another argument is creating a false narrative. Now, this creates a false narrative among the minds of the people that government is concerned about the people's issues. Like another argument is why can't you give UBI, that is universal basic income? Anyway, you're directly creating money to the people. Why can't you give universal basic income so that people have basic ready-made access to the basic services, goods that can leave them with dignity? Now this is one argument. Another one is it benefits, discriminated to the incumbent government. That means the government that is in power has advantage because it is the government in power that can announce the schemes like this. No fiscal burden on the citizens or future citizens. Now it is saying that this leads to intergenerational tax burden. What does it mean? To garner the votes of present generation, this government or political parties putting burden on the future generation in terms of taxes. That is what I'm saying. And it is also seen that having a lot of schemes or a freeways or things like that or welfare schemes, it is also increase public debt long term. Next, if at all, if you want to give nutritional support, increase the nutritional support or diversify the products that you are giving under the PDA system. This is what said in this. Or if you want to give economic independence, you can provide employment like MG in a diversified manner to the women so that they will also feel have self-respect, right? Now, next, another thing is the dependency culture. What does it mean? It means that it will reduce the motivation of the people to work because government is providing different types of services freely, especially money transfers. Right, this creates a dependency because now there is a thing called if you want to make person capacity building. Now there is a need of capacity building of people. You should not give fish, like you should train them how to fish. Things like that. There are there. Now there are the about politics of what does it mean? Now it is means that the politicians often garner the votes of the people and create a vote bank. They will always offer the short term measures so that this creates a sense of satisfaction among the people in the short term. Now this creates a poverty circle that every time people will come, politicians will announce certain small welfare schemes for the short term needs. Again, they will fail to meet the long term developmental needs or infrastructure needs. This perpetuates the poverty of the people in the long term. Now, this is called politics of poverty and things like that. Now, other in this article, it is mentioned that caste transfers at best act as a bandages, but the state still needs to treat the larger wounds before they become infectious. Now, this is important keyword that you can use in the examination, especially in the JS paper 2, that can add value to your answer, right? Now, coming to the next article. Just remember this point, these are the keywords, these are very important. Now, this article is saying that a current time economic costs of ban on plastic must be seen with its ill effects on health. Now, you know that recently Global Plastic Conference, that is Global Plastic Treaty is happening under the UNEP, right? Now, this conference is happening in South Korea, Busan, right? In 2022, UNEP taken a declaration that to end the plastic pollution. Now, in this context, it is conducting series of conferences. In that context, now this conference that is happening is the fifth one. Now, in this, a global plastic treaty was to be come out, but the thing is that there is a stalling in this conference. That means there is no significant treaty came out. No talks were stalled. Now they are thinking that there is a need to rethink or come up with new strategies to address this plastic pollution. Now, this article is saying there are economic costs of ban. That is, it is being said that using the plastic is very inevitable because of its pervasive nature in its use. For example, in our daily life, we use plastic in everywhere. For example, if you are buying something from an enterprise or a shopkeeper, he will give you along with a plastic polythene bag or things like that. Okay. And next thing, now e-commerce is increasing. Now, if you buy something in online shopping, they will again come up with a plastic cover. So everything that is because of its less weight, portable in nature. So there is a lot of dependency on the plastic. Hence, you cannot completely avoid it. Now, another important thing is plastic as such is providing a lot of employment, especially through the MSMEs in developing countries like India, right? Hence, it is a lot of employment and part of economy. So immediate ban is not now in this conference. Also, developing countries like India is arguing that we do not go for immediate complete ban, and we do not follow the production rates that are saying by the developing countries, and we do not follow the particular chemicals that the developed countries are saying that should be banned. Now, India also said that we will control the plastic production, but in our own terms, as per our own needs. You should not dictate which chemicals to be banned. Now, it is being said that certain chemicals are very harmful that are used in the production of the plastics. But India is saying that we will decide which chemicals are to be which chemicals has to be banned or which are not to be banned. Right? Now, another important thing is that plastic are made from some kind of chemicals that are generally outputs of the crude oil refineries. Right? And this is also a lot of profit to these companies also. Right? They are also against this. So these are things that are happening. Right? Now, the author is also saying that, okay, if at all not possible to eliminate, at least focus on certain things that can be done. That is of focusing on the prevention aspect. That is focusing on the reducing use of plastic, reusing. For example, if you buy something from the shopkeeper, he will give you carry bag or something like that, polythene bag. Next time when you are going, just carry the same bag so that you should not give new one, right? That is reuse and reduce part of it. Right now, next is recycling. There are two types of plastic, thermoplastics and thermosetting plastic, things like that. Okay, there's some type of plastics are recyclable in nature, right? Now that can be promoted for recycling so that it will reduce the usage. Now this is also part of the circular economy, right? Now next thing, R&D and alternatives. Now there is a need of or talking about the biodegradable plastics. Now we should focus our research on biodegradable plastics and alternatives to the plastics and things like that. Now, this is what they mentioned in this article. And plastic as such is a not just a pollution aspect; it is very important from the health aspect also. The author mentioned that the health of the people. Now, it has been said that in blood sample, in its research recently found that certain amount of plastic is found in the blood samples also. Now, this lead to bioaccumulation, right? Now, another important thing is animals, marine ecosystem. Now, it has been said that plastic litter is found in the marine, especially in the food chain of the marine ecosystem and animals, right? Animals, because plastic is being seeping into the land, water, and animals cannot differentiate what is plastic. Unknowingly, they will eat and things like that. This affects flora and fauna, and this affects even economy in terms of it reduces the soil fertility. Now, in a research, it is found that wherever the plastic is accumulated in the soil, it becomes infertile in that area. Now, hence, it is affecting the humans' health holistically. That is, health of the land, health of the water, health of the soil, marine, animals, people, things like this is what mentioned in this article. Now, that's why Adar is saying that economic cost of ban of plastic must be seen with its ill effects on health. Now, it is being said that in the long term, the effect of plastic is more on the health than economy. Now, this is what the author is saying. Okay, remember this point so that you can use in the examination, because in previously in GS paper 3 questions are asking about the what are the outcomes of the conference of parties of UNFCCC, or what are the guidelines that India is taken regarding preventing solid waste management. So, as it was asked previously about solid waste management, there are chances that plastic is also can be asked. Okay, remember these points and conferences that are happening. Now, coming to the next article. Now, this article is saying that after anomaly alert, ISRO sets Proba 3 launch for today. Now, the context of the news is that Proba 3 is a satellite launching by the ISRO, but this is a satellite of European Space Agency launching by the ISRO. Now, ISRO is providing launching services to the European Space Agency. Now, this is what the context of the news. Now, you have to know what is meant by the Proba 3, because UPSC previously asking this particular satellite was seen in the news is related to the which of the following, or this particular program was seen in the news is belong to which of the following. Okay. Just have to remember that Proba 3 is belong to European Space Agency, launched by the ISRO's rocket of PSLV. Okay, remember that it is PSLV C59 that is launched. Okay, now these are the things from the examination perspective. Now, Proba 3 is something related to the observation of coronal mass ejections. Okay, now this satellite is to study the sun's corona surface. Now, this is what the context that from the examination perspective you have to know. Okay, now remember certain things from the examination perspective. Now, why this article important? Previously, UPSC has asked, just now I said some of the questions, and if you see, it is asking about the rocket launching vehicles also. If you see with reference to India's satellite launching vehicles, consider the following statements. This was asked in UPSC Prelims 2018. PSLVs launch satellites useful for Earth resources monitoring, whereas GSLVs are designed mainly to launch communication satellites. Yes, this statement is true. Now remember, this can be asked in the in next year exam also. Things like this. Now, next thing is that satellites launched by the PSLV appear to remain permanently fixed in the same position in the sky as viewed from particular location on the. Now, this is a wrong statement. Now, next, GSLV Mark III is a 4-stage launch vehicle with first and third stages using solid rocket motors, and second and fourth stages using liquid rocket engines. Now, this is also wrong statement. Here, the answer is A. Now, from the examination perspective, no, this Proba 3 also launched by the PSLV. So, you have to know certain things from the PSLV also, from the prelims perspective, it is very important. Right? Just now here, see, I mentioned Proba 3 is a mission of European Space Agency. Now, what is the context now, or what is the purpose? It to reveal the new insights into the sun's faint corona and to study the origins of the coronal mass ejections and on study the effects of these eruptions of solar material have any effect on our satellite communication, disrupting satellite communication, or power grids on the Earth, or things like that. Okay, this is the purpose. Now, from Prince perspective, we will know certain basic facts about the PSLV and also NSIL. Why? Because it is been said that this is an initiative led by the NSIL, supported by the ISRO. NSIL means New Space India Limited. Now we have to know this organization also. Now from the examination perspective, remember these points about PSLV. Now it is a third generation rocket launch vehicle. Now if PSLV is a third generation, then GSLV is geosynchronous launch vehicle is a fourth generation. Okay, remember. Now it is PSLV is also called as workhorse of ISRO for low Earth orbits. Now remember that PSLV is majorly using for pushing the satellites into the lower Earth orbits. Now PSLV is a four-stage vehicle. Now just now you see in the previous question, it is asking about the stages of the vehicle. Now SL, it is first stage is of a solid, second liquid, third solid, again fourth liquid. Now previously PSLV rocket system was used for launching important missions like Chandrayaan 1, Mars, that means Mangalyaan mission, Aditya, recently Aditya and L1 mission also. Now remember these things, maybe it can be asked. Now coming to the New Space India Limited. Now this is very important. Now this is a commercial arm of the ISRO. Now why it has been created firstly? Because see, we have a lot of requirement in terms of research and development in the space sector. But it is being that both human resources and monetary resources of ISRO is being focusing on the launching of the satellites. Now, hence, there is less money available, less human resources are available, and less time available to focus on the research and development that is useful for developing the new technology for space exploration and using space for the human applications. Now, in this context, ISRO and government also wanted to promote the private participation. Now, to facilitate this private participation, a body is created that is New Space India Limited, in which it is handholding the private sector bodies to provide their services in the space sector, such as developing rockets. For example, recently Skyroot, a startup, is developing its own rockets and things like that, okay, and satellites. And this is facilitating private sector participation by marketing the services. It is marketing the services provided by the space sector of ISRO. For example, it has been said that India is launching small satellites through small satellite launching vehicle for foreign countries. Recently, you know that there is around 30 satellites are at a time has been launched, right? Now, this New Space India also facilitate technology transfer developed by the ISRO to the private sector for their use. Hence, the main objective is to promote the private sector participation in India's space programs so that they invest in development of the satellites, rockets. Now, so that ISRO can have time to focus on the reusable rockets, right? Researching on the space-based ecosystems, space-based trainings, and things like that. Like very important missions like Aditya L1 and things like that. So the basic communication services, remote sensing services can also be provided by this private sector and things like that. Okay. Remember, this is a public sector enterprise created in the 2019. Okay. These are the things you have to know from the examination perspective. Right. And another important thing, that India has a target of building its own international space station, Gaganyaan mission. All this requires a lot of research, right? And on Mars, reusable rocket launches and all these things stuff. So for this, a lot of money, time, and required of the scientists also. So to have a separate wing like that, we need private participation so that in providing basic services and civilian services that are required, that can be provided by private sector. To facilitate that private sector participation, we have New Space India Limited. Now this is what the context you have to know. Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that India's strategic focus on West Africa. Now what is the context of this? You know that recently Prime Minister, while going to the Brazil to attend the G20 summit, in between he have a strategic halt in Nigeria, in which he is the first Prime Minister of India who visited Nigeria, especially an African country, in the last 17 years. Right? This visit is the first by an Indian Prime Minister to Nigeria in the last 17 years. Now it's also been that Nigeria provided second highest national award to the Prime Minister. Now, why Nigeria is important? Now, this article is mentioning that Nigeria is the largest economy and the largest democracy in Africa. Now, you know that there is a lot of political instability in Africa countries, certain things, especially regarding the armed rebellions, insurgency, right, ethnic conflicts. A lot is there. So, in this context, Nigeria is important because its values are resonating with India because it's the largest democracy in the African continent. Right now, they both expressed interest in boosting ties in the areas such as defense, energy, technology, trade, health, and education, and terrorism. Terrorism is a major thing because Nigeria has facing the issues of terrorism, especially the terrorist group called Boko Haram is present in this West Africa, especially in Nigeria. Right? India also said that we need to cooperate and coordinate to address this issue. So this article also mentioned that India is providing developmental assistance of around $100 million in terms of capacity building and training programs in Nigeria. Now, another issue in this article is highlighted that the Nigeria has China's connection. That is, Nigeria's dependence on China. Now, this is a challenging factor for India because Nigeria have around 200 China's companies operating in Nigeria, providing various kind of services in the Nigeria. Right now, this article is criticizing that India is majorly providing public finance. That is, operating services majorly from the government sector, but not private sector participation from India's side. But if you see in China, the China's 200 companies are operating in Nigeria, providing various types of services. For example, in this article, it is mentioned that Huawei company is providing Nigerian youth, training in terms of telecommunication and things like that. For example, in this article, 2,000 Nigerian youths and 1,000 federal civil servants are trained across various types of cybersecurity strategies and things like that. Okay. Now, another important thing is China is developing Lekki deep sea port. Now, remember, this is from the film's perspective. Lekki deep sea port is in Nigeria. Okay. Now, this is developing by the China to decongest the trade. Right. Now, these things are happening, and China is also developed 27,000 mobile towers and 10,000 kilometers of optical fiber things. All these are the very active in nature. Hence, it is very important to know that China is a leading economic partner in this area, especially Africa area and in Nigeria also. And it is very active in the mining sector because Africa have a lot of mineral resources. Now, it is also important to know that, but India has also strong relations with Nigeria. But it is the thing that the author is saying India need to accelerate in terms of its finishing its products, whatever or services that are there, infrastructure projects that are there in Africa. Now, this is that. Now, why this article is important from the examination perspective? Yes, this is important. See, there is a previous year question that was asked in GS paper 2, not just once. It was asked thrice about the Africa. Now, one of the examples is it is in 2021 that was asked that in the last few decades, for the Asia's growth story, next few are expected to be of the Africas. In the light of this statement, examine the India's influence in Africa in recent years. Now, from the mains perspective, you have to know that what is for India from Africa, right? And what is the importance of India to Africa and things like that. So, from the mains perspective, okay. Now, firstly, why Africa is significant? Why Africa is significant for India? See, now first and foremost thing is that Africa is an emerging economy because it has around 5 to 10 countries that are having rapid economic growth. Okay, just now we have seen Nigeria and things like that, South Africa. So, and another important thing is that it has largest market. Now, presently it has been said that it has 1 billion, more than 1 billion population. That means around 70% of the population. Now, by 2050, this number will increase to 25%. Hence, it will become a very huge market for the Indian products, majorly for the textiles, pharmaceutical goods, IT services, and things like that. So, hence, it is a significant market which is untapped by now. Now, hence, another important thing is natural resources. Now, Africa is rich in natural resources. For example, it has been said that South Africa has the rich or largest resources of platinum and chromium. Right? Another areas such as Uganda and Congo has important minerals of 21st century that is useful for the electric vehicles, semiconductors such as lithium, cobalt, etc. And for nuclear power, uranium has a lot of many resources that are available in Africa. Now, these kind of resources are there which are important for the emerging technologies. Right? Hence, it is important. Like stable Indian Ocean and Red Sea trade. Why? Now, you know that Africa is bordered with the Indian Ocean on one side. Now, hence, free, open, and navigable Indian Ocean is enabled with the politically stable Africa, especially the bordering countries. Now, it is mentioned that there is a lot of piracy activities happening in the Western Indian Ocean, especially in the eastern part of the Africa. Right? In that context, political stability is very important. Hence, a proper coordination and cooperation from the bordering countries are very important. That's why it is said. And next, India's energy matrix. That is to diversify the India's energy matrix, especially to divert from the West Asia. Africa is very important. Certain African countries such as Nigeria, Ethiopia has a very good amount of crude oil resources and other natural gas resources. So India can diversify. Another important thing is to counter China. Why? Now, China is increasingly investing in infrastructure, creating military bases in African continent. Now, for example, one such example is China has invested just now is in Lekki deep sea port in Nigeria. Another important is Mombasa port in Kenya. This is developing again by the China. So in this way, China has constructing or surrounding India through its infrastructure policies. Now, there is a keyword for this that is string of pearls, right? Okay. Now, this is the importance of Africa for India. Now, what India is doing as India is doing a lot of investments now. India is the fourth largest investor. Now, just now we have seen that India provided $100 million assistance to the Nigeria, things like that. Now, recently sent all women peacekeeping force to Sudan, Darfur, things like that. Okay, so India is providing or contributing in peacekeeping and security operations. Okay, India recently provided digital security services and communication services. For example, you know about a Pan-African e-network project in which India is providing optical cable services for communication and technology. Right now, India also promoting Africa, especially in the democratic world order. Now, India is promoting for representation of Africa in the UNSC. Right now, by promoting multilateralism. Now, India recently, while happening G20 conference in India, included Africa Union into the G20. Now, this is the contribution that India is doing. Another important thing is India is providing a lot of education services. For example, recently, IIT Madras, a branch was opened in Tanzania, right? Now, another important thing is India is providing tele-education and tele-health services. For example, E-Vidya Bharati scheme, in which tele-education services provided in the remote villages of Africa. Arogya Bharati, E-Arogya Bharati is providing as a telemedicine service. Now, India is providing affordable generic medicines, and India is providing an assignment of doctors during Ebola and malaria issues and a lot of issues. For example, India is investing a lot of infrastructure, also providing capacity building, training, right? India has infrastructure for excellence, digital revolution, and things like that. India has unique payment systems and financial sectors such as UPI, right? And all these are can be integrated into the Africa so that helps in capacity building of the locals. Now, this is what the context that India is doing. Now, there are certain challenges in this process. That is delay in implementation. Wherever that is because of delay in implementation. Why? Because delay? Because it is majorly focused by the government investment in the Africa. Less private sector is involved in the Africa. That is one of the reason. Now, another important thing is stalling of Asia-Africa growth corridor. Now, this is a corridor that is announced by the India and Japan. Okay, to increase the connectivity and improve the supply chain between India, Japan, and Africa. Now, which is also less effectively implementing at the ground level. Okay, just now I mentioned these are projects have mainly been government led, hence there is a lot of bureaucratic delay. Now, this indicates the slow implementation in contrast with the Chinese. That's why China have a lot of infrastructure. Trade relations have not been picking up since the decade, though there is increasing market, right? Political instability. Now we have seen a lot of military coups are happening in the Africa continent. Now, Indian companies are failing to compete with the Chinese investment, cheap exports to Africa. Now, these are the challenges. Okay, remember these points and keywords that are very important so that you can use in GS paper to international relations because Africa is very important from the examination perspective. Okay, especially GS paper 2. Now, coming to the next article. Now, this article is about caste census. Is the caste census a useful exercise? Now, this article is saying that though there are certain people who are arguing for the caste census for various reasons, now this article is saying that caste census is impractical. That is the core of this crux of this article. Okay. Now, why this article is relevant? Yes, it is relevant in GS paper 1 Indian society. Caste is continuously been asking year after year. Now, though exactly caste census may ask, may not be asked, but you can use caste census as a demand, as an example in your mains answer. Now, we have to know from the examination perspective to generate an opinion that pros and cons of the caste census. Now, okay. Now, previously, there's a question of why is caste identity in India both fluid and static? That means caste identity sometimes it appears to be rigid, sometimes it appears to be flexible. Why? This is what the question. Okay, now moving to the context. There are certain this article mentioned that there are certain people who are promoting caste census for various reasons. Now, first of the one of the reasons is proportional representation. Now you know that there are many caste communities in India. Some are overrepresented, some are underrepresented in certain jobs and vacancies and things like that, employment, education. So to get a proportional representation based on the number of population, we need caste census so that as per their population we can give. And that is what this article is saying. For example, just now we have seen that 2 days back in an article about the IITs and IIMs, it has been said that there is no representation of scheduled tribes in IIM professors or scheduled caste in the IIM or IIT professors. 80% of the posts are taken by the general category. Now, this is what the article actually has said. Things like that can be addressed by this. Another important thing is creamy layer. Now, it is being said that within the reservation also, only certain group of families, for example, let's say if there is 100 communities or 100 families in one type of caste group, let's say a caste group, now it is being said that only 10 families are intergenerationally getting benefit from this. That is, their son like that grandsons are getting reservation from the government because of the allied capture. This is called allied capture because of the increasing awareness, increasing capital, increasing support. No other people are disregarded. No, these caste census are very important in this context also to address issues of lack of awareness. Once there is a proper census, now people also aware about their requirements and their rights, their entitlements and things like that. Now, this is what one of the arguments. right? Some people are saying that this is a political thing to garner the votes and things like that. Okay. Now we will see certain challenges associated with caste census majorly given by this article. This article is clearly saying that the caste census would be impractical and regressive. Why it is saying like that, we will see. Now this article is saying that there are certain challenges. What are the challenges? That is, firstly, complex terminologies. Now there is no uniform framework of caste. For example, different castes may have different terminologies or different names in different states. Now how can you provide an integrated framework to divide the caste? Now this is what one of the thing. Okay, another, for example, in this article itself, it is said that there is one caste group having similar sounding of names, in which they are providing SC category in one state, OC general category in another state, things like that. So this is a thing. Next thing is that caste groups frequently claim different identities in different regions. Just now it is mentioned. One caste group is claiming in backward status, one club is claiming higher status in different regions. Now this is because of the migration. Now it is difficult to prove that. No, there are various subcastes. Now it is been said that in a study it is found that in this article itself it is mentioned that socioeconomic caste census is saying that around 46 lakh castes or subcastes that are there, and it has around 8 crore errors. So in this, it is difficult to categorize people into one particular caste. Now there is another important thing is tribalization. That means in this article also mentioned there are certain people who are claiming tribal status, and tribal people, Sijaras, Kinnars, and claiming into some of the caste status. Now, how can you ascertain who belongs to whom? You cannot deny also in that case. Now, next important thing is upward and downward mobility claims. For example, because of some caste groups of higher social status. Now, some people who are having lower caste, they're claiming the higher caste names. Now, in this article itself, it is mentioned that first caste census has happened in 1871 and 1872, around that time. Now, it has been said that the people who are having lower social status or lower caste in 1921 census, claiming higher social caste in 1931. Like in post-independence, what happened in census, it has been found that people are claiming in the lower social status or lower caste. Why? To get the benefits of reservation. Now that is what the issue of upward and downward mobility claims. Now another issue is sensitive issue and misclassification. What does it mean? See, while enumerating, for example, if a person is enumerating caste census, it is difficult to ask about the caste because it's a very sensitive issue. People may hurt by the words. So hence, by listening to the surnames, they can assume particular caste, and this lead to confusion and misclassification, misrepresentation, and things like that. Okay. Now, another thing, this article mentioned that it is very impractical and regressive. Now, this article mentioned, let's say if there is 1.4 billion population, now there is certain study said that there are 6,000 castes in India, right? In this context, to get a job through reservation for a caste group, if a particular caste group is very backward and they have only 10,000 population, right? It requires for them at least to announce 1,40,000 jobs to get them selected, one of the person into that. No, hence it does not affect because it against the meritocracy, right? So to get a seat or a job, they need to announce at least 1,40,000 employment jobs. But it has been that in most of the vacancies, it is just around 1,000 vacancies, for example, in UPSC, things like that, or 2,000 vacancies, not more than that. So if a backward caste having less population is discriminated, have a lot of disadvantage. A caste that having very low population, hence they have less proportion, less number of seats for them, and to get a seat or to get a vacancy to get employed, they need more number of seats or vacancies to be available, and this is disproportionate and disadvantage for them. And another important thing, or a very, very important thing, is reinforce social divisions. Now, this reinforce the thought process and conscious of social identity. Now, people will recognize having conscious that this is not our caste group, this is not our caste group, or things like that. Okay, this reinforce social divisions. Now, this is what the challenge is mentioned by this author. Hence, the author is saying that disproportionately, this type of caste census will exclude the least populous caste from the accessing benefits of reservation. Hence, this is impractical and regress. Now, this is the opinion of author. Okay. But you have to remember the certain pros and challenges. That is what the thing you have to remember from the examination perspective, right? Now coming to the next article. Now this article is saying that Chinese ship fired water cannon at a vessel of Philippines. Now this is the context of the news. So in this context, from the examination perspective, you have to know especially the map of South China Sea. Now you can use this example in GS paper 2 AR section, in which you can say that China recently opened the water cannon at a vessel of Philippine vessel in the South China Sea. This is a aggressive Pacific Ocean policy or things like that. Hence, this is affecting the free and open navigable feature of Pacific Ocean. No, this is against the freedom of navigation and things like that. So, from the examination perspective, you have to know certain things, especially from the plane's perspective, about names of certain islands and about 9-dash line. So, 9-dash line is an imaginary line in which it determines the areas of the islands that are claimed by the China. Now this is there in South China Sea. Okay. Now remember an island name called Scarborough. Now UPSC may ask that Scarborough Island recently seen in the news is related to which of the following? It give options like Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, and things like that. Okay, it is related. It is in the South China Sea. Now this issue was happened in this Scarborough Island. Okay. Now we will see the South China Sea map from the examination perspective. Just now I said why this article is important. Now if you see previous year prelims question, it was directly asking that which of the following rivers or flows into the which sea or which ocean. Now if you see the 68 question, it's saying that Mekong River. You have to match this. Now Mekong River, very important. Remember that this flows into the South China Sea, not Andaman Sea. Now there is a one important river that flows into the Andaman Sea. That is Irrawaddy River. Remember, just it is a fact. Okay. Now Thames River flows into the North Sea, not Ari Sea. Okay. Hence this is wrong. This is wrong. Next, Volga Sea flow into the Caspian Sea. Yes, this is the right statement. Zambezi is a river that flows into the Indian Ocean. Yes, this is also right. Hence the option is 3 and 4. Now from the examination perspective, you have to remember few rivers that are flowing into the South China Sea. Hence in this context, remember that Mekong River, just now we have seen, and Pearl's River, Red River. And there are other rivers also. Just remember these 3 rivers because these rivers are flowing into the South China Sea. Okay. And you can see the map here. The Scarborough Island, just now mentioned here, it is this. Now this is the Philippines. Now here the issue has happened between China and now this is the South China Sea. Okay. Now you can see broader map here. Now this is Yellow Sea. Now eastern side of China it is East China Sea. Southern side of China it is South China Sea. Right now this is the Philippines and this is the Vietnam. Now just you have to remember that islands where they are there. For example, it is you see here there is Parcel Islands again it is in South China Sea. Padley Islands, South China Sea. Scarborough Islands. Now majorly these 3 types of islands are in the news because of these 3 islands are claimed by different countries. UPSC will not ask that which island claimed by which because there are one island is claimed by the multiple countries. So UPSC won't ask that. It just asks that hardly that if at all ask these islands are present in which are the following ocean and things like that. Okay. Just remember that these are the islands that are related to the disputes of China and thing. And you know that there is a question of PYQ films. It has been asked Senkaku Islands is a dispute between which are the following or Senkaku Islands recently seen in the news is related to which are the following. You know that it's something related to the dispute between Russia and Japan, right? You know, like that, they may be asked that Scarborough Island, sometimes seen in the news, is related to which are the following. It is something related to the island disputes in South China Sea or things like that. Okay. Now, these are the things you have to keep in mind, especially from the prelims perspective. I hope you like this video. Thank you. Have a nice day.